Hey guys, what's going on? Rico Garcia here, founder of Ecotech Pro, and today we're going to be talking about scare tactics that restoration companies are using to make sure that you sign with them. And we're going to be talking about black toxic mold. All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about toxic black mold and the scare tactics that a lot of companies are using when they are coming into your home and you're concerned about mold, and they're either A, doing a mold assessment, or they're there to go ahead and pitch you on their services and why you should be going with them. Now, look, first things first, let me preface this by saying that black mold, or what's called Stachybotrys, is in fact a serious situation, and we shouldn't disregard it and we shouldn't downplay it. However, that being said, Stachybotrys, or black mold, which is really a media term, right? Really isn't remediated any differently than any other type of mold that you may have in the property. The most popular mold, or most common mold, I guess I should say, is Penicillium aspergillus. So that remediation process is exactly the same for the most part as any other mold. Realistically, the reason why you do a mold test and you have a mold assessor document what kind of mold is in the property and what quantities of mold are in the property is really so that we have a benchmark as to what's going on and why the counts of mold are what they are inside of the property as opposed to what they are outside of the property, right? So for example, if you have a high aspergillus count outside, we can go ahead and cross-reference that with the aspergillus count inside of the property. If there's no Stachybotrys outside, but there's some Stachybotrys inside, then we know that there's an issue with the indoor air quality and we have to go ahead and dig a little deeper. The second reason why testing is really important and why we have to identify the kind of mold that is in the property is in case that you're symptomatic, right? Maybe you're feeling a certain type of way, and we could, in some cases, go ahead and track, or a medical professional might be able to track, hey, look, you've had long-term exposure to this particular type of mold, and typically, based on the studies that have been done, this type of mold will give you this type of symptom. So that's really why testing is done. However, there are too many companies out there that are going to homeowners, and from the moment that they knock on the door, they're literally already have their face masks on. They've got all of this unnecessary gear in order to go ahead and walk in the property to do the initial inspection, right? Especially if someone's been living in the property for a while. At least in my opinion, I feel that it's very unprofessional. I feel that it's too much of a scare tactic to literally be talking to elderly people that have a small mold issue, but yet you're talking to them with your mask on because you're making it sound throughout conversation that it's the end of the world and that they need to move out of the property immediately and this and that. And there's so many things that go into that. So look, mold is serious. Yes, we as professionals consistently have to be protecting ourselves because we have a lot more exposure to it. And that's all fine. I'm not downplaying that. But what I am saying is you need to kind of have an eye for how people are presenting this information to you as a homeowner, as a business owner, as someone who has a potential mold issue, and say, okay, are they giving me facts, or are they feeding on the emotional state of this thing, and are they trying to scare me into acting harshly and paying perhaps a little bit too much for this particular service and things of that nature, right? So making sure that you're dealing with a company that is going to be giving you the facts, right? Is Stachybotrys toxic? Absolutely. Is it probably more so than any of the other mold strains that we're familiar with? Possibly so. But does that mean that you should be scared to, into submission by a company who comes in and totally blows it out of proportion? In my opinion, no. I think that you should be familiar with the facts. I think that someone should take the time to go ahead and explain to you what the proper mold remediation and protocol is. Make sure that all of the testing is done properly and that the job is done thoroughly. And then finally, make sure that you have post-verification testing to make sure that the indoor air quality levels are exactly where they need to be moving forward so that you have a safe and suitable living environment. And that's really the key. Again, depending on the situation, every home is slightly different. If you have an exuberant amount of mold growth in the property, then yes, and you've been living in that property for quite some time, then yes, there's obviously some additional precautions that should be taken, and perhaps you should be removed from the property until the remediation has been completed. But under a lot of circumstances that I've seen, rarely is that the case when a lot of these scare tactics are being used to, beat people over the head and consumers over the head with, toxic black mold, you're basically going to die tomorrow. We need to go ahead and get everybody out of the house, and we need to go ahead and start this remediation here today. And what I say to most people when when I've heard these stories is, how long have you been living in the house? Oh, I've been living in the house for X amount of time. Okay, how symptomatic do you genuinely feel? Like, no, I know that I need to address it, but it's not that bad. Okay, great. So it's probably an additional 24 hours isn't really going to kill you. Again, I'm not a doctor, but at the end of the day, my job is not to go ahead and scare people into doing a remediation process, but to educate people and let them know what to go ahead and look forward to and what things they should avoid. And scare tactics and black mold should definitely be one of those things where people are getting a lot more informed about what those policies and procedures are for individual companies. And if you do your due diligence, if you go ahead and speak to a couple of companies, always kind of, pay attention to what they're doing. Are they educating you, or are they trying to scare you into doing a remediation right away because it's considered black mold? Also, as one final thought, just because you're looking at a wall that has black and it's mold doesn't necessarily mean that it's black mold. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's what the media calls toxic black mold, which is Stachybotrys. That literally could be anything. It could be the most common mold found in properties, or in fact, it could be Stachybotrys. No one can look at mold and tell you that based on its color, it's ABC type mold, right? So the only way for you to know that is by getting mold testing from a third party, get it back, read the report, and then based on those scientific findings, then you go ahead and develop a protocol to properly sanitize the property. So at any rate, I hope that this video helps and shines a little bit of light on these scare tactics that people are using. And as always, if you found some value in this video, go ahead and show your support by giving us a thumbs up, smashing the subscribe button, sharing, or dropping a comment below. I'll be more than happy to answer any of the questions that you have. And if you or anyone you know could use mold remediation or restoration services, feel free to pick up the phone anytime and shoot us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you out.